Okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about, I'm gonna walk through sort of this idea of how I would change this. So instead of passing down my data to friends list, somebody mentioned earlier what I would have to do here. This is going to drastically break my application, saying props.friends is not defined. Why is props.friends not defined? Yes, you have an object. So close between lines 29 and 31, you have an empty object. You got to close that. Or you have like a curly brace that's out of whack is really what's going on there. Yeah. Okay, so why is props.friends not defined here? I mean, it may not be that obvious, but remember I was passing it down to friends list as a prop for each friend. Well, I'll tell you, it's because we were passing that down as person.friends, right? So I just have to change this to person and it should work. So if I have an object who has a nested array on that object and I want to reference it, I need to loop over that array and then get each object so that I can reference the properties found at that object. So this would be undefined. Cool. It's the same thing as me passing it down this way and doing friends list with person.friends as the object, as the array that I'm passing down. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was pretty clear. So thinking of this now in terms of comments, each blog post or each Instagram post has some comments. That's how you would do that. I don't need to nest it. I'm just going to pass it down. So if you notice the pattern here, app set state passes down to people list iterates over that state, which is now props, creates a new person. Each person has an object, has an array of friends on it. So because of that, we just pass those friends down another state. And then we use that to iterate over that list. So these are just the person's friends, individual friends for each person in the array. Cool. That's exactly how you would do it for your InstaClone, by the way. You need this to be some sort of comment section that you're building out. But let's walk through a couple of examples of ways that you could make this look pretty. This is called state-driven views, by the way. Our views in our application, so the views that we're looking at, the stuff that we can see, are driven by the data or the state that they have access to. Okay? So now, let's shift gears and let's go back into CSS land. You could style an app like this. Create React app is so clever, it's so well put together that right here, all you have to do is import a style sheet and you have that style sheet available to you. But if you want to do something a little bit more and you want some of those styles taken care of for you, we can use something like this, Reactstrap. It's a component library built around React and Bootstrap version 4. So to get it into my application, all I need to do is install Bootstrap and install Reactstrap, and that's it. So let's go and grab these and let's install them. I'm just going to use my IDE built in for that. just going to say yarn add bootstrap and Reactstrap. So you need Bootstrap and Reactstrap, okay? So you need both libraries. What the Reactstrap depends on Bootstrap. These are fine. These warnings are fine. Okay. Now in our index.js file, right here, we need to import in our Bootstrap. So we need to grab le Bootstrap, and notice all I'm doing is going to register, and I can get rid of that service worker. I'm going to register this at the root. Index.js is my root. I'm going to go and find a node module called Bootstrap. Look in the dist, and this is going to have to be in my node modules. Yep, this is exactly why it wouldn't work. If you don't have this, you're not adding it to your document. You could, if you wanted to, go to public and index.html, find your head tag, and before your closing head tag, go and do a link, you know, blah, blah, blah. Get the CDN link for it. Not important, because this is easier. Because everyone interfacing with your app across your team is going to be using Bootstrap, and they're going to be using npm or yarn. So when you npm install or yarn install, you're going to go and grab that dependency anyway, and you're going to have it. And then when you go and deploy, this file, this minified Bootstrap file, is going to be available to you. Notice that everything changed already. We've got reset styles. Like, this was not the same. So if I go and delete some of that CSS that we're not using anymore, like our font family, which is there's probably an index.css file. I'm going to just delete that, and we should be good to go. Right? That's still using the sans serif type font from, I think it's Roboto. Is that what Bootstrap uses? I don't know. You guys probably know better than me at this point. And then, yeah, we have a list, kind of ugly. We have these, all this is just ugly. It's just black and white text. So let's make it pretty. So this is where we're going to use Reactstrap to our advantage. Because if you notice, I just imported it, and now I have that available to me. So to use it, all I have to do is do something like import the non-default button object from Reactstrap. And then if I want to see my beautiful button, notice it's capitalized. Great, button's available. There it is. We got the little default button. Let's actually add text here, like hello button, just like you would in regular Appland, and we'll just say primary. I think that's something I can do. Let's look at the props for it. So now to be able to work with this the way that I want to, I can go and look at the components library in here inside of components. Let's look at buttons and let's see what I can do. Oh, color primary. So that was my problem. So color equals primary. Yay! React. Yep, exactly, Eric. That's what you would want to do for, I guess you're getting your Google fonts. Yep, that's how you would do it. You could download them as NPM packages, but you could also just run the CDN, which is what I did at Noki. For any fonts and anything that we were using that were custom fonts, I would pull them in the same way that you're suggesting. Right here in public index.html. And look at what public index.html has for us. This is just like React Day 1, where we have a root or a target ID, and all of our React code is going to live between these divs, between this div. So yeah, just look for public. With Create React App, you get your public, your index.html, so you can use that. You get a lot of other stuff too, but not to worry about it. Okay, so button, great. There's not much use for a button on this page. So let's actually refactor our people list to look a little nicer. I'm going to use something called card title, card text, and card body. Okay, so here we're going to make this outer div our card. Sweet. Card body. Our first and last name are going to be our card title. Come on, start to work with me. You can see the font and everything starting. Oh, I know why. Because I'm a dum-dum. This needs to be a div. If you noticed, I was wrapping my entire list of things in that card, and you can see here right on the edge, if you look closely enough, maybe if I inspect it, you'll be able to see it. Right on the edge there, that's the card. It was wrapping all of them. I want them to wrap just each individual singular one. Okay? I'm going to show you where I'm pulling all this from. So each one of these gets its own card. And then it looks a little nicer. Okay? So let's finish this a little bit. You know, and then we could also make this div style look a lot better. So let's do that real quick too. Let's do a class name, and you're not always going to just get away from regular styles. And let's just say this is going to be our people wrapper. Okay. And then we could create a people list CSS file and style it. I'm going to give it a width of 50%, margin of, I don't know, 1 EM and auto. And let's see if that aligns the way that I want it to. Oh, I don't have it available to me yet. Import. The ability to do this is so powerful. To import in your styles like this, that's super cool. Yeah, so Nayli, that's a very, very awesome observation. So I'm not making necessarily an element. Card is a component that comes from Reactstrap. So when I say card, I'm pulling in a component that was pre-built, and most likely the element that it is probably a div. If you notice, here's my div. That's my card body. Yep. So it's div card. It's got the card class from Bootstrap, card body class. Yes, Jeffrey, although I'm not going to run into I'm not going to do any demonstration on getting less up and running. I have never used a preprocessor in my life. So the best person to ask about preprocessors at Lambda School would most certainly be Josh, although I don't think Josh has set it up in a React ecosystem yet. So put Josh's brain and my brain together and we could come up with a solution. So yeah, I don't have a demo for you. I use this thing that I really, really love called styled components. I actually used a thing called Aphrodite forever until this was better. Notice this is just React component with some declarative styles. So I highly recommend looking into that as well, as I do believe CSS and JavaScript to be the future. But somebody's going to prove me wrong on that in a couple of blog posts later. Okay, so let me put this together here. So we have card body, card title, card subtitle, and then we have some card text with a button, which would then look like this. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, instead of making a button for my friends list, I'm going to, okay, so this needs to be card subtitle. Is that what it was called? Subtitle? Or just card text. Kind of start to lay these things out a little nicer. No, I still don't like it. going to break. Looks a little better. And now we're going to hide this list away. Okay. So our friends list, we can still import it. We can still export it like that. So if we go to friends list now, and remember, this is all a demonstration and having, helping you get up and running or get your styles taken care of with your sprint or with your project, with your Instagram clone. All right, so what I want to do, I was thinking we would do a clever little drop down, but that's dangerous to do a demo of something that I know absolutely nothing about. Or something that I've implemented this a few times, I guess. It's not gonna be that hard, but I have to change my component altogether for this handle toggler. Because then I could put a little list group in there and it would look nice. Let's just do a list group for now, and then we'll expose that in a different way in a second. So we'll do import list group. Make sure nothing's broken there, and then we'll call this a list group, and each one of these a list item. Does not contain an export named list item. List group item. Fancy. Starting to look a little nicer. And then if I really wanted to take this that step further of hiding our friends and showing them on click, I would then take this and wrap that list group potentially in one of these little drop downs. So then I just have a friends button that I click on it, and it would show my friends. Drop down toggle is a caret, and then the menu, they have their own items here. So potentially I could have done this the same way. Let's just try it. Why not? You guys ready for it? Okay. Okay. Nope. Little caret thing here. And this is how you do it. This is how you use the React Bootstrap library. It's pretty fun, I think. Then we need those things right here, and then we're just going to set is open to true for now. There you go. Thanks, Eric. Eric on the spot. Okay, and then these would need to be, we'll wrap this in a drop-down menu. And then wrap it up and drop-down items are all going to be this. Let's get rid of that. Drop-down menu, drop-down menu. Oh. Drop-down is not defined. Oh man, that looks terrible. But it's because they're all open. So now we need to refactor our component. Okay? Because we need that little toggle function. So it's going to say toggle equals this dot handle show. And the problem is we're kind of creating a bunch of these, so we would have to do it dynamically. Put that to false, and let's just see what it looks like right now. It's not reloading. And let's see, go back to that. Drop down, they called it drop down, okay. Friends. Cool, we got a little button here. And it's looking for some sort of toggler. Okay, let's build that. Let's build the toggle function. And it's still going to be terribly ugly, but oh well. Okay. So the problem with this is that when I click on one of them, they're all going to open, but it's going to demonstrate to you, how fun it is to work with this library. Let's do it this way. Okay, and then after this demo happens, let's see, handle show, misspelled friends. I have misspelled friends. What line? Somebody help me. Right here? Right here? Beautiful. All right. And they're all, actually, it's only showing one at a time. That's cool. There's my friends. No, oh yeah, there's tons of bugs. But you could then simplify this by making this only show the friends for that item, right? You would, you would set this Boolean to show or hide based on the single friend. Okay.
16 is misspelled on the second friends.
Oh, right here as well. Thank you. Hey. Nice. Style it up, make it look and feel a little better. Not bad. It lives. Thanks. Maybe that was my bug. It's just the misspelling. Okay, so there we go. You have now seen how a potential way that could make your life a lot easier, especially when working with React Bootstrap, so components, and especially in your Instagram. It's not that beautiful, come on. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. You guys saved my bacon. Once again, the dangers of a live demo. Live coding demos are so scary. Especially, I don't have any examples for any of this other than the documentation. So You do have to build it beautiful, Anthony. That is your #1 goal. Okay. All right. Now there's some really important stuff to cover that you've seen a little demo of playing around with Reactstrap and how you could get it put together. So let's recap real quick, and then we're gonna move into the prop types discussion, which is the final objective for the week as far as lessons go. So remember, we npm installed, or we yarn installed our Reactstrap, and then we also installed Bootstrap version 4. And at the root of our project, we included the style sheet so that all of the styles in our project get the style sheet. Okay. So now we have the ability to, and I guess I did it inside a people list, so let's go there. Now I have the ability to pull in a bunch of pre-built components for me. So these components, all of these components are now at my disposal. And I combined a couple of different things, a drop-down list and a card, to sort of make this work together in this way. Kind of dynamic, kind of fun. It's blowing my mind that it's showing. I want to know how this is, I guess because we're creating, yeah, that's why we can do this. So do you all understand why this happens this way? Okay, I want to walk you through that real quick. Because we built our React friends, or our friends, sorry, and each friend, each card is our friends list, right, has its own state. Okay? Or sorry, each friends list has its own state. So if I come in here, let's see where that one is real quick. So because it has its own state, we're generating this list on the fly. Okay? So because it has its own state, we can then hide and show the individual elements. I thought for a second it wasn't going to work that way, that all of these had different state, but I forgot that we had nested this down one level. So now this thing has its own state, and it's available for you. And so as you click, it only updates that specific component state. So it's a show and a hide. Cool? All right. We're going to stay right here inside of this file, or inside of, let's see, do I want to do it here? Each person down to, yeah, friends list. No, each person's here. Okay. We're going to actually shift gears over to another application, and it's going to be the same application we worked in yesterday. Okay, so and we're going to learn something new that we don't know yet, and it's called prop types. Okay, so what I'm referring to is this idea of prop types in React.js. Who here comes from programming language experience where you have static typed languages or static types in the language? C++, okay? Hints and doubles. We're not quite going to get that way. We are going to basically do type checking to ensure that our types are the types that we want them to be with. So if you come from a statically typed language, you're familiar with this thing called type checking. Is that correct? Is that safe to assume, Cruz and Harrison? And then anyone else who comes? Okay. So type checking. What we're looking for here in JavaScript, it's kind of the what do I want to say here? We have dynamic typing in JavaScript, and it's a feature of the language that some people think is ridiculous, and we should have static types. And it's also a feature of the language that a lot of people deem to be one of the best fundamental features of the language, meaning we have types that could be of more than one thing. Okay, what do I mean by that? If I have a let num equal 1, num will also equal the string representation of that type. Okay? So this is weird because num does not triple equals the string representation of that type, meaning it's not explicitly equal. Okay, with the double equal sign, it means that we're saying, hey, I don't care much about the type. I just want to know if num, the integer, the number, is the same represented value as the string representation of num. So when I say something like this, 1 triple equals 1, that's false. But when I double equals it, it's true because these are not type checking. It's looking for the value as opposed to the type. When I explicitly check with the triple equals, I am saying I want to know if the type of the string 1 is the same as the type of the number 1. But they have the same value. So because of this dynamic data, sometimes we expect data to be something and then it's something else. So if we're, for example, where we could get in trouble is if we are iterating over a list of data. What if somebody gives you a number and you're expecting to iterate over an array? What's going to happen? Well, we could physically find out what's going to happen by saying, 10.for each. Whoops. Yeah, that doesn't work at all, right? Okay, so if you're expecting some data to come into a function, okay, whoops, whoa, that minified drastically. Okay, if you're expecting some data to come in, and you're going to say, I want to loop over that data, or in our case, we want to map, because that's what we do in React all the time, right? Item. Okay. Cool. Little foo function. Foo could take an array, and we could say 1, 2, and 3. Console.log out the values. But what happens when I'm calling map over a string? Or if I call map over another function? Right? Or if I call map over something that's not an array, even an object. Okay? Here, that's the problem, is we're not stopping this from happening. Right? We're not stopping the idea that some data could be sent down into our function and checking to see if this data is the type of thing that we expect it to be. So if we wanted to, we could do the JavaScript way of doing things, and we could say if array.isArray some data, right? We could check this. It's hard to type in the console. Okay, else we could console.log or console.error for that matter. You goofed the data, right? This is tedious. This is not easy. This is annoying to have to do. So now if I call foo with that object, I'm going to get that error that says you goofed the data. If I call it with an array, it should just work as expected. Okay? Here's the issue. Potentially, we could be passing data down to our components as props and expecting it to be of one shape, meaning of a certain type, and not have it be that type. So do we want to do this every single time and say, I want my prop to be, right? I want my prop that I'm passing down, this is going to be some string, okay? I want this to be a string. We don't want to type that every single time. So React gave us this package called PropTypes. PropTypes is a way for us to check the props that we send down to our child components, okay? Let's see how this works. So in the documentation, I'm going to just throw this in the documentation for you guys. Harrison goes ahead and asks a very, very good question. Could I go ahead and use something like TypeScript or Flow? Yes, absolutely. We don't have necessarily the bandwidth to teach a module on those things and, you know, sacrifice any of our other content at the time, right now. But I would love to get into teaching TypeScript or Flow type. TypeScript is a superset to JavaScript that allows you to do this. It allows you to check your data that's being defined, that's being created, that's being passed around. We're going to use, for us, we're going to use what's called PropTypes to do this in our React application. Okay? So let's go over to that. I think I still have that same code sandbox. I haven't changed it yet. Let's see if it's easy for me to find that and give it to you all. Oof, I need to label these. It's probably the last one we were working in. The one with the cities. Nope, those are animals. Does anyone have that on hand? Fastly, so I don't have to go digging through docs. The cities example is the one that I want to use. I need to go clean my code sandbox up. There it is, thank you. This is probably your version. No, it's forked from, it's okay, cool, forked from this one, okay. That's the version. Okay, cool, let's do it. So our city data, our cities list, and I want you all to follow along as well. Thank you. You guys have your own unique URLs. I need to save this one and keep it as a reference for later. Like you saw, I need to go clean my code sandbox out. Okay. All right, here is our kicker. We have a bunch of objects, right? So we have an array of objects that we're passing down with city. And these are numbers, so great. This is why I wanted to do this. The population is a number and the land area is a float integer as well, okay? Meaning it's a decimal. Cool. So what's great about Code Sandbox and what it allows you to do for like fast prototyping is it allows you to add in packages when you want to add your dependencies. So if you were to click on this Add Dependency button, you could go and look for something called PropTypes. We already have it installed. And it's prop-types. And go ahead and make sure that's installed. Okay, so PropTypes, and you'll see it in your list of dependencies here once you have it. And what's good is this demo is super brief, and you'll be able to deploy this stuff into your applications this afternoon right away after this demo. Okay, so we're going to look at our cities list component, and we're gonna now expect that this component has a props of a certain shape. Okay. Now it's kind of interesting because we're actually expecting this to be an array, right? If I look at my logs, you'll see that this is an array of objects. And that's fine. We can still use this demo. It's perfect. This is a perfect demo. Okay. So if I'm going to use PropTypes, which used to be a part of the React ecosystem, but has been since created as its own project, this is how I'm going to do it. So open up cities list and follow along with me. So we're going to import PropTypes as Pascal case from prop kebab case. I just said some things you probably have never heard of before. Pascal case means uppercase first letter and then camel case the rest of it. Okay. Otherwise, if it was like this, it would be camel case. This is called Pascal case. Kebab case, like kebab, like a shish kebab. Kebab case is done like this. There's also snake case where you have like hyphens, underline, whatever. So there's a bunch of different types of casing. So just notice that I'm calling prop types as capital prop types and pulling in the package from the hyphenated version. Now, because React is smart and they removed this prop types package, but they also allowed us to keep our components within React, keep them with the ability to leave our components with the ability to use prop types, it's really easy to get up and running. So all we have to do is just declare a property on our cities list called prop types. Notice this, if you weren't confused already about the craziness, this right here is camel case. All right? So this is one of the things that people struggle with in the beginning. Okay? Now we need to see all of our cities. What did I call it? I don't want that. I want to do this. Look in the console. I call this cities prop, and that's fine. So we're going to type check cities prop, okay? So that's what you need to define in this object, the prop that you want typed. And then it's just a key value pair, because we're on an object. Let me zoom in. So you all should have code that looks like this with an error right now that's breaking your code. Okay. This is where we're actually now going to use that prop types variable that we defined above. So any type that you want, you're going to define it by saying prop types dot something. And if you notice, just by doing that, I have a variety of things that my stuff can be. An array of is a function. And so since our cities prop is an array of objects, we are going to define this as the array of. Okay? Now this is going to say every single time that we pass data down to cities list, we need to ensure that it's an array of something. That's all we've done here. Okay? Now each item in that array, because they're objects, and we're going to expect them to be the same objects every single time, is also needs to be checked. So we're going to say now prop types dot shape, which is also a function. Shape is how you test or check an object with prop types. So if this thing is supposed to be an object, we're just going to check it this way. And then you just now can start defining what each value on the shape of the object should be. Let's look at our data and make sure that we know what we're checking. So the first one is city. What is city going to be defined here? Prop types dot what? String. And likewise for state. Okay? Now what happens, and you're probably curious and thinking to yourself, what happens if I said this is supposed to be a number? This is why type checking is so great for us. Notice our warning in our console. Okay? Failed prop type, invalid prop, cities prop at 0.state of type string supplied to cities list expected number. That's an error message for us. It's a beautiful error message. It's saying, you gave this a string, you dum-dum. It is supposed to be a number, you fool. And so on and so forth. That's what the warning should say. Because then we'd all laugh at ourselves as we built React applications. Now, some of you are probably thinking to yourself, and maybe you haven't, and this thought hasn't occurred, but when I first saw this, I was like, why would I want to write all of this code? And what's going to happen to the size of my application as it bundles up and gets sent to production? Well, React thought about that before you did. And they actually will, when you build your code for production, they will take your code and they will remove all of this prop types code for you. So it's only for development. And it's to ensure a number of things. Why would we want to check our data? Those of you who come from a static type language maybe, or those who can just sort of guess, why would we want to type check our data? What does it grant us in the long run? Yeah, exactly. That's totally true. Because we can't trust ourselves, Jared, what do we do? What do we introduce into our applications? You get better data. You get the data that you expect to have. Okay? So this would be a string. Then we're going to check our other stuff, which is the rest of these objects. So population and land area. What is population? Is it a string? Uh-oh, invalid prop. We've got type number supplied to cities list expected string. It's a number, right? Number and float. But here's the kicker, Kyle. There's not, I guess that worked. That blows my mind. That should not have worked. Do they really have float in there? It's funny. If they do, I'm dying inside. Ha. Nope, they do. Dang, dude, that's cool. All right, so you could check it as a float. What's the difference between a float and a number? Decimals, precision. Yeah, you get a floating integer, right? These are integers, type num. But there is no primitive type float in JavaScript. And if there is, I'm going to eat my words right now. Number. But freaking React went and put in floats. I don't see it anywhere in their documentation though. That's so funny. Use number, just use number, okay, in case you get into trouble later. Even if it is a float and you know that, just use number for integers, okay? Non-string integers. For now, that's my rule of thumb. And I'm curious as to why float worked. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, in fact, in JavaScript, there's functions built into the number, onto the number constructor called like parse float, okay? Yes. Let's find out. Nope. You guys are really keeping me on my toes today. I love it. So just use number. Okay. All right. This is how you would use prop types. And all of the documentation you need is found in the React docs. And it's super, super nice. I already linked you that, right? No, I didn't. But it's linked in Training Kit, I do believe. So make sure that the data that you're passing down is the data that you expect it to be. And now that you know this, you can come to the documentation and you can see, there's one more thing that I want to show you here too. But this is an array. This is a Boolean, function, number, object, string, and now they even have symbol. Notice they're calling everything optional, okay? What's interesting about optional is it allows you to, and where's my code sandbox? It allows you to require something to be, a data type to be required, right? So on here I have greeting hello, and then name Ryan. So I also have a couple of other things. So that's our cities prop. Okay, so that's all there is for cities prop. But I also have greeting to take care of as well. And I'm going to say prop types dot string dot is required. Okay. Now this required flag is available for me to say if I'm going to use this cities list component at all, it is 100% absolutely necessary that I send the string of greeting down to my cities list component. So if I save that, and if I'm using cities list in this application, and if I'm maybe using it somewhere else in another part of my application, and I forget to send down greeting, guess what kind of warning I'm going to get? The prop greeting is marked as required, but its value is undefined. The only time you would use object as a type of for Lucas is if you don't have any nested properties on there. Shape you want to use for nested properties in your object. So if you're just sending down if all you care about is it just being an object, you could use PropTypes.object. Shape will allow you to actually test the values of each property. But yeah, so that was important to understand as well, is the idea of greeting now is required. So think about this in terms of reusable components. Let's say you work at a company who has thousands and thousands and thousands of components, with hundreds of those components being reusable and reused over the application all the time in every single different nook and cranny of the website. If you build your prop types into your application, the person using that particular component will get shut down if they forget to use something that's required, right? So if I just need to supply this as greeting, and it's a type string, right? As long as I am not a derp. Cool? This is certainly a phase in test-driven development. You're going to get into testing, and you'll learn, more about TDD later. But this helps you in the process. So from here on out, I expect you, from instructor to student, to be thinking about your data. And I highly encourage you to use prop types on your child components. And what will really help you in the long run is, let's say that I have not even built this before in my life, right? Let's say that cities list is something that I've never built before. Whoops. And an approach that I would like you to start taking is thinking about the data that your component is going to be consuming, okay, before even writing the component. And that approach will allow you to sit down, think about your data, and then, okay, craft your component. Naily, optional does the same thing, it's just not required. So it'll still type check. It'll just say, hey, that one's required, that one's not. You can read all about that in the documentation. So if you look for the is required, you can chain any of the above with is required to make sure a warning is shown if the prop isn't provided. Okay? Because these props right now, this is a better way. Right now, cities prop is not required. Let's do this with name. Name is not required for this component to be built and used. So if I go back here and I do not pass it down, I'm not going to get a warning. It's optional. If I require it, I will get a warning if it's forgotten. Cool? Did that explain that for you, Naily, and everyone else who is curious? If you ask the question, there's probably 6 or 7 more who are curious about that too. Cool. So yeah, this is how you type check your data. At least the data your components are concerned with. All right, gang. Certainly, there is plenty to do with your Instagram clones. And if you notice, your first stretch problem in your Instagram clone is to add type checking for your dummy data in your child components. So I recommend getting everything laid out and designed beautifully and put together. Try and get it to be functional, and now you can start type checking. If you notice, Insta clone right here, implement the ability to like. Oh wait, hey, where did it go? I could have sworn I added that in. I wonder if it's hey. Lame. Okay, that's my bad. It's in a version of this, but not the version you're working with. So just imagine there's a stretch problem for here for adding prop types in. Okay? So make sure you get your InstaClone up and running to this spec, with your little header up top, and then go and start type checking the data. All right. All right, gang. Thanks for hanging out. I can stick around for the next 12 minutes or so for question and answers since we ended our discussion a little bit early.